Welcome to the program, dctp.tv from the Republica 2016 in Berlin. My name is Philipp Banse and my next guest is Aric Toler from bellingcat. Welcome,
yes,
Aric.
Thank you.
So, bellingcat is, how would you describe it, a crowdsourced research platform?
Something like that. We have many faces and many hats we wear, but I think the primary is we were an volunteer-based, open-source investigative research team. So we published various research projects based entirely on open-source information. So information that's freely accessible for everyone online, so people can take this information, verify it, view it the same way that we, the researchers and writers, did, and they can make their own assessments based on our evidence.
So I think we have a lot of, newspaper, media with a lot of stuff researching. Where's the hole you fit in?
Yeah, we're kind of on the fringes a little bit. So we work a lot with media organizations, but we don't work nearly in the same way as media organizations. So, like I said earlier, we do entirely open source information. So we feel like a really important part of our process is that the viewers and readers can take all this stuff we did. We show our work. We show every tiny little bit of research we do. All of our stuff is publicly accessible. So we don't have anonymous sources. We don't have interviews with secret, state officials, or we don't do that sort of thing. Everything is right there.
For example,
we have volunteers. For example, we may find information on social media accounts. We may find information on Google Maps, videos that were posted. We also consult with real journalistic reports as well. But we also cooperate with media organizations. So we may, as I was talking about earlier, sometimes we are just the first half of a real investigation. So we may find information about a Russian soldier in Ukraine. We found, because he posted pictures of himself in Ukraine, and we locate the photos and find all the materials and make a timeline. But the next step is we get that information to a journalist who can then go find this person, verify all the information we found, knock on some doors, call some people, and take the story to the next level.
And bellingcat is you, two staffers?
We have, the core staff is me and Elliot. Elliot Higgins is our founder. We're the only two people who are paid. We're funded full-time. We have a grant from Google. They've funded us for the year, hopefully further on. And then we have dozens of volunteers from around the world. We have people from the Netherlands, Canada, Russia, Ukraine, Germany, all over.
So
America.
The Guardian did a video which pretty clearly shows the way you work.
Yeah.
And just tell us what we see here.
Yeah, sure. So what you can see on the screen, I'm not sure if the viewers can see the screen, but we have Elliot here talking about a report we did in, I believe, January, February 2015, where we studied how Russian Grad missiles, they fired from the territory of Russia, so these are actual Russian soldiers, not Ukrainian separatists, from Russian territory, fired artillery strikes onto Ukrainian army positions. And we did this entire report entirely based on open source information that people can go in and look themselves. So here, as you're seeing on the screen, we use this Google Maps, and using historical imagery, we can see the changes in the landscape over time. So here, everything is a very pristine landscape, and then on 16 July 2014, because the artillery attack was on the 14th, 2 days previously, so you can see all these artillery craters. And then using this information, this is a field with 330 craters in Ukraine, and we calculated trajectory using a U.S. Army method. You can see right here, we calculated trajectory of each crater. But each one...
From the shape of the crater.
From the shape, exactly. But if you just do a single crater, it's a very huge margin of error, 20-30% each way. But when you do 330 of them together, we take the average, and it leads us directly to a firing location in Russia, to where we can see the outlines of some Grad missile launchers. And they're pointing directly at the artillery field. So we know, in this, the burned out field did not exist before the artillery attack happened. So we know that this is where they staged.
This is what we see here. This is the place where the launcher stood.
And we measured the length of the Grad, so we determined what kind of artillery it was, and it matched with the craters on the ground. And so we were able to match. This right here is a stock image. That's not the actual attack.
Okay.
So we're able to actually calculate trajectory using just Google Maps and historical imagery, and a lot of elbow grease and math too. Yeah.
Okay.
And here's another example here, where we actually have video of the attack happening. So some Russian citizens looked out their window, and they saw these Grad missile launchers here firing into the sky. They're firing westward towards Ukraine. And we found there are 6 or 7 of these videos, and we located each one of them, exactly where they were shot from, like by this pond right here. And we were able to calculate where the firing spot happened and where it went to. It went into Ukraine, and it was fired through from this field right here. You can see some their tire marks they've left. And so here we actually have the actual video of them attacking Ukraine with actual real Russian military soldiers actually staging an attack onto Ukraine. I mean, it's war. It's Russia attacking Ukraine. It's not like they're just sending equipment. They're actually Russian armed forces are firing on Ukrainian armed forces, right? It's clearly it's a war.
And the sources you use are films by people
Yes.
who happen to film
Yes.
the event.
That's one of the main sources we use. Are pictures and videos that just came from normal people, because most of the events that we study are fairly significant. So you have a huge tank rolling through town. You may have some missile launcher firing, and the people see this and they think, "Oh, that's cool, right? That's something interesting." So maybe on their dash cam on their car, they'll see a tank fly by, right? And then when they get home from work, they say, "Oh man, I saw a tank today going to work. I'm gonna put the video on YouTube, and I'll get 2,000 hits on the video, and I'll be famous for a day," right? But then we use that material to put together narratives and find out the threads and how things connect.
But how do you trace down the exact position of those videos?
Yeah, with this we were fairly lucky, because this is in this Russian city of Gulkovo, and Gulkovo is big enough to have Google Street View. So the cars that go around and take pictures of the streets. We actually had on the ground imagery from every corner of this town, so we can match the landmarks that are visible in the video. So there's a pond, there's a tree line, there's a certain 2-story building with a red roof. All those little things. We're able to match all those features exactly with the video, the satellite images from above, and also Google Street View from below, and match them up.
The satellite imagery you use has to be very precise and very, how to say, it must not be very old. You must
Sometimes.
have very small steps, like, okay, this was how it looked like yesterday, and this is how it looks like 2 days later. How do you get those images?
It depends on the subject. We were very lucky, very lucky with that crater field that we studied, which was the Google image was on July 16th, 2014, and the attack happened July 14th. If that picture was taken at July 13th instead, this study could not have happened. So we just got lucky. The frequency of images that come in on Google Earth is sometimes reliant on what's happening at the time. So someone is purchasing lots of those images for Ukraine because people want to see them, so they put them up. But sometimes it's really frustrating, and it's hard to do research in places. Like, for example, in Iraq, there are some places that the Google map image is before the U.S. invasion, before 2003. So if you want to do research on something to do with Iraq, you may find these buildings, but those buildings may have been bombed or destroyed, 13 years, 13, 14 years. So really, that's one of the drawbacks of open source information. On one hand, it's great because everyone can go in and look and verify it themselves, and it's free. But on the other hand, it's not. I mean, we're not a spy agency, right? We don't have access to super secret satellite images. We just go on what we can find.
And it's publicly available.
Exactly. Yeah. One time we did want to find a very specific image, and we did a crowdfunding campaign to buy a certain image because the Russian Ministry of Defense had misdated and faked a photo that supposedly showed a Ukrainian system downing MH17. It's a long story. But we could purchase that through Digital Globe, a satellite company. But it costs over around $1,000, $2,000 to purchase and publish. But we ran a crowdfunding campaign through our readers, and within a day, we had the money. So then we could do it. So that was semi-open source, right? Anyone could get to it, but you had to cough up a couple $1,000s. So thankfully, our readers were dedicated enough to help us out there.
The first time I heard about you was when you traced down more or less where the beheading of James Foley took place. Yeah. U.S. journalist who was beheaded near Raqqa, we know right now, and publicly available then was only the video of the beheading.
Only
of course.
The video.
And it was really in the beginning of ISIS, and everybody was wondering who are they, where are they based, etc. How did you find out where James Foley was killed?
That was done by Elliot, our founder, and if you go to our site bellingcat.com, right, there's he did a step-by-step exactly what his process is, because a big part of our research is showing every step of the way. So, because half of our stuff is revealing news, and the other half is trying to teach people to do this themselves, right? Because all this information's out there, and anyone can do it. So we want to teach people. We have a lot of case studies, and he goes through every single element that he looked for. So, like, there's a path behind him that goes kind of behind a mountain. In the background, you can kind of see Raqqa, kind of, sort of, almost. There's certain formations of forest. And with this, he just looked. He had a feeling it was in Raqqa, just because it's it's ISIS headquarters, all that. And he looked every tiny little bit. I mean, these stories, these stories may look like they're fairly easy, all that, but sometimes, for every hour of work that we publish, there's 20 hours of fruitless just grind, right? Just looking and looking and looking, trial and error. He just spent, I don't know how long, just looking at every tiny little bit in the desert around Raqqa until he finally found something.
On satellite imagery?
Yes, on satellite. Just going through Google Earth and just looking until he finally found what he thought was a match.
And, I mean, it's seriously, absolutely a very tedious amount of work, like looking, comparing, what kind of other tools do you use for your research, technical tools?
Our main tools with this is talking about finding where things are located. Google Earth is the big thing, right? Because you can access historical imagery and all that. We also use a site called wikimapia.org. And what Wikimapia does is it's satellite imagery, but you can switch between different satellites. So Yandex, a Russian company, has one. Yahoo has one. Bing has a satellite. Google has a satellite, right? They all have their different satellites. And also has user inputted information. So for example, if there's some building sitting there, if you're looking for some bakery, right? Someone who lives in that town may mark that this building is bakery called, I don't know, whatever it's called, right? It has user submitted information that's mapped onto a Google map. So in a Google map, you only know the information that maybe the business provides, right? But in some places like villages in Russia, Ukraine, or in Syria, Google doesn't know. So you have people who actually are familiar with the area, and they can type in a little history, like, this used to be a dormitory until 2009, now it's turned into an office building, all that stuff. And so there's a lot of information that we don't know unless we know everything, right? And that we can get from user-submitted information.
Do you use OpenStreetMap?
Google Street View? Oh yeah, all
no,
the time.
No, OpenStreetMap.
OpenStreetMap. What's that? It's like the all the different
exactly.
I know
alternative to Google Maps.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I've used it before, but we use Google for almost everything.
Okay.
Yeah. For one, they're giving us money, but second, just because their stuff is usually the best.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying that just because they're giving us money, but it really is usually. Yeah.
And you are working on the flight MH17. What do you try to find out there?
Yeah. Well, it seems like every week we have something new because this is kind of a unique case because it's similar to like the Lockerbie bombing, right? But the Lockerbie bombing was very, it took them years and years and years, and it's tedious, and they do these interviews and all that stuff. This is very unique in that it's a war crime that was done with a ubiquitous internet, right? Not everyone, but most people in Ukraine have, at the very least, a camera phone, but most people have smartphones. So every step of the way of where this book was moving through eastern Ukraine, there were snapshots, there was witness testimonies, boom, 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 all around. So there's a huge amount of information. The new report we're publishing tonight.
So just to mention,
yes.
There was a plane that was shut down.
Yes, there was a plane that was shut down. You may have heard of it. It was going from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur on July 17, 2014. We've done a lot of work identifying the exact missile launcher that was provided by Russia. We don't know if it was operated by Russia or the separatists. We're still not certain if it was the crew. Was it separatists in the cabin of the Buk, or was it Russian soldiers, or a mix? I think the Dutch will find out. But we know the actual missile launcher that shot down the plane. And so our new report that we're publishing tonight is a little bit more information about the history of that missile launcher. Because there were videos of this missile launcher traveling along the roads of Russia towards Ukraine in June, a month before the tragedy happened. And on the hull of the Buk, it says 3, and the middle digit's obscured. It's painted over. And a 2. We weren't sure. Is it 302, 312, 322? No, right? And we determined it was 332 because we looked at all the individual features on this book, and we looked back on social media accounts of old veterans of this brigade, who posed. Right? It's a very cool, huge piece of machinery. They pose with it. It's like their friend,
they're
right?
Proud.
Yeah, it's like a fancy car, like a Ferrari. You want to take a picture of yourself with a Ferrari. It's this $50 million missile launch. You take pictures of it, right? And so we can get every little nook and cranny, and every inch of this book is photographed from 2010, 2011, 2012. And so we compared each little dent on this thing, because there's some high-resolution photos available now. Exactly what the wheel composition is, how the cables connect, because it's different for every book. And we made a determination of exactly which it is. So we have a little mini biography, a bookology maybe, right? A bookography of how long it's been there, who's operated it, and so on. So we kind of have a biography of the world's most famous missile launcher, right?
And where did you find the photos? On Facebook?
We've been working on this on and off for about a year because we've had it on the back burner because we find stuff we don't, right? And we do a lot of our research just in-house, just among us bellingcat people. But a lot of the findings of this came from a Russian forum of the city of Smolensk has a forum, and there is a 300-400 page thread on this forum. I don't even remember how we found it, but we came across it somehow. And there were some really sharp-eyed people there who found some of these pictures we had not seen of this book. And so we took their research. We thanked them and acknowledged them. We're not stealing it. We took some of their work and we expanded on it and tried to find more features and all that. So this is kind of a crowdsource, and we just some random Russian or Ukrainian noticed this, posted it on an obscure forum for a city 500 miles away from where the plane was shot down. We found that and we took it and we used and expanded upon it. Yeah.
And how do you verify all those films and photos?
How to verify if they're real?
Yeah.
Usually it's fairly obvious. If some soldier who was really a soldier posted a photo in 2010, 4 years before the downing took place, well, you can assume it's probably real, right? They're not faking that, right? You can't backdate photos for 4 years, right? You can backdate them sometimes for 24 hours maybe. You can make an edit like a secret, but you can't do it for 4 years. So usually the time frame is very, very important. Because when we look at witness testimonies for what happened in MH17, we're trying to find the exact route and what happened and when. The most reliable ones are from before everything happens, right? You can't backdate stuff. Because the stuff that happens after, witness testimonies after the fact, are unreliable by nature because everyone will have an agenda. They know what happened and they know how to frame things. But in the raw emotion, the heat of the moment, people are the most honest. You know, the information's not always reliable, but you know what they actually experience, right? They say, oh, it's a boom. I heard a big boom just now, right? So you can calculate, you know, where they heard it from. If it's 30 miles away, you know exactly kind of, you know.
And what qualities do people need if they want to, I don't know, take on your work or do something else?
Yeah, you just have to have a lot of patience is the most important thing. If you have a certain subject area you're interested in, because we have a lot of stuff on Russia, Ukraine, Syria, and all that, just because a lot of people are interested in the wars in Russia and Ukraine. But we've also published a lot of stuff that's very far-reaching. So, for example, we did stuff on the watches of drug cartel leaders in Mexico. Right? So because on their Instagram accounts, they like to brag about their watch. They post their big fancy watches, right? And we looked at the brands of each of the watches. We said, oh, that's a $25,000 Rolex. So we were able to identify, you know, all the money and all that stuff, right? And people have done this also the same, getting off topic, with Russian parliament, people in Russian parliament, and they looked at their jewelry, and then you can price how corrupt they are by how expensive their earrings are, right? That's open source. You just do it, and you look on, you know, Rolex or Zara or whatever, see how much it costs. And we're trying to do a little more environmental issues, because you can look at satellite images, like maybe like deforestation, right? You can track it over time on satellite maps. You know, corruption, war obviously is a hot topic everyone talks about. So anyone can do it, as long as you just need lots of patience, a little bit of computer know-how, know how to operate Google Maps and all that. But you really don't. I mean, you know, a lot of people who aren't super computer competent can do this because maybe they're an engineer and they can do other things. I'm not an engineer. I'm not terribly good at math, but I can do a lot of these things just based on finding narrative threads and stuff like that. So everyone can contribute something. Just find out what you're good at and what you care about.
All right.
Yeah.
Eric, thank you so much for your work.
Yeah.
Thank you much for the time.
Yeah, so nice.
Aric Toler from bellingcat. My name is Banse from Republica 2016 in Berlin. Thank you very much for watching. You find all the videos in our YouTube channel, dctp.tv, and on dctp.tv itself. Thanks very much. See you. Bye.